Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads to get to those books, to find out which ones have impacted them the most in their life, their work, their businesses, whatever it may be. All those worlds intersect. I want to get to that book that has made the best impression on them, the strongest impression, whether it's their own book or someone else's. And my guest today is Mike Trugman. And Mike is a life and leadership coach who helps people move from fear to fulfillment, building lives rooted in purpose, passion, and authenticity. Through his work, Mike supports clients in reconnecting with their inner compass so they can show up more fully in every area of life, both personally and professionally. He's the host of Mike's Search for Meaning, a top 3% podcast dedicated to exploring what it truly means to be human. His conversations dive deep into transformation, vulnerability, and the inner work required to live a life aligned with who we really are. Mike's own journey is proof of what's possible. He once felt paralyzed by self-doubt, so anxious about speaking in meetings that his body would shake. With time, courage, and consistency, he not only found his voice, he built a life around helping others find theirs too. Before stepping into coaching and podcasting, Mike spent over a decade in public accounting, specializing in financial services clients like hedge funds and private equity firms. That experience taught him a lot about achievement, but even more about the cost of ignoring our inner truth. Mike lives just outside of New York City with his wife and young son. When he's not coaching or podcasting, you'll find him reading, learning, cooking, walking in nature, passionately rooting for the Knicks and the Jets. Ooh. And cherishing time with loved ones. I'm not even a sports guy, Mike, but even I know that is painful. For the Knicks last season and the Jets
forever.
And I want to give a shout out to Jennifer Jane Young, and she's the reason I'm talking to Mike today. I was introduced to Mike by Jennifer, who's an intuitive leadership coach and business consultant. I had her on the podcast for episode 144, in which we covered her book, Say Yes to Your Yes, How to Trust Your Gut and Take the Leap. Some people, as soon as they're done with the conversation, I love the fact that sometimes it just comes up. They're like, okay, I got somebody you got to talk to. I have a friend or a colleague or a business partner, whoever it is. I love when they get that excited about what comes out of this conversation, that they put me in touch with somebody. Mike is that somebody. We got to talking, connected, talked face to face, virtually. And here we are for this conversation. So Mike, thank you so much for coming back, man.
Right on, John. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So Mike, my first question always is, I read the bio, very thorough. I love the transition from, the corporate world to the work that you're doing now. And we'll get into all of that. But right now, who are you today? The work that you're doing, what does that look like in the day-to-day? Just so I and my viewers, so we can get an idea of who it is that's going to share this book with us.
Yeah, well, I think that every client that I sit across from in some way, whether they're conscious of it or not, is exploring, how do I show up as a leader? So in my bio, as you read my bio, reconnecting to your inner voice or something of that sort was echoed throughout the entire bio. And so who I am today through my professional life is I'm a one-to-one coach. I help people show up the way that they want to in their life, whether that's in their business, whether that's as a parent, in their health, well-being, relationships, all the above, man. Like I'm really, I've explored that in my own life a lot. How do I show up as a parent? How do I show up in my relationships, my health, my business? And I think that as a coach, I help people see their blind spots of where am I running into patterns and conditioning, and where am I not stepping into what really matters to me? And there's obviously a lot more we can get into about the coaching side of things, but luckily for me, or maybe not luckily, fortunately, I'm very blessed to be in all dojos that really challenge me as a leader. So I'm a dad of a 2-year-old. That in its own way is my own leadership development transformation program.
Oh, yeah. Very eloquent. Yes, absolutely.
Being a parent and then being in a committed partnership, being married I'm on the heels of celebrating 5 years, and I've been with my partner for almost 10 years in total. That in and of itself too is its own dojo where a lot of my stuff comes up. And so being a business owner, parent, and a husband are three of I think, the best ways to get on this path. But there's life is always teaching us. So I'll let you poke and prod from here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Whatever, as you're coming into your life, as you're developing a family, as you finish school and you're starting your career, maybe you start your own business, you have this idea and start a podcast. You have this idea that you have things not completely figured out, but that you're in a solid place of foundation, and ready for the podcast, ready for the marriage, ready for the child or children. And it's incredible how that just goes out the window. That you do come in with some, courage. You do come in with some experience. You are ready for the challenge, but you're still evolving. You're still learning. And as prepared as you may be for it, you can't anticipate what's coming. Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, something to that effect, right? So I love that you mentioned that these are various dojos that you're still, being tested and developing and growing in. Mike, to get to where you are today, what does your path to today look like? Usually I like to start maybe around in your youth, high school, when you're going into the workforce or college. What did that path look like to today? Just so we get a sense of, what it is that crafted you into the person that's sitting in front of us doing the work you're doing.
One element of this is, what was I like when I was younger? So I, like probably several of your past guests, I know Jen was like this too. There was kind of the above the neck version of me, the analytical, does well in school, traditional, quote unquote, successful type of person who was very interested in math and was really good student. Like I did really well in school, and in a lot of ways was able to meet the expectations of someone who operates in a traditional job and operates in the real world in a way that allowed me to be successful. So as a child, I remember being a really good student. I was very shy, very observant, very sensitive. So I always, without having the language for it at the time, was able to kind of feel the energy of the room, was very self-conscious. I always felt like I was being judged by other people, and could always feel, I think the best way to say it is I could always feel the temperature of the room. And one way that showed up was that in my family of origin, I was always kind of hyper vigilant for what's mom feeling today, what's dad feeling today, and how can I put myself in a position so that they are happy. So I took on a lot of the responsibility to be the good boy, the one who was kind of just doing whatever it took to make sure that everyone else was okay. And I can see how that is a skill that really serves me as a coach, and is something that is really, in its own way, making it totally about the other person and abandoning my own needs. So that's a little bit of what I was like. I was also really into sports. That was one of the only places that I felt like I came alive as a kid. Like I felt like I struggled in a lot of ways socially with people. Always had a lot of friends, but just was so, I have so many vivid memories of my palms being really sweaty and just feeling anxious. Like the walks in between class periods in high school were very anxiety producing for me. I was scared that I might run into someone I know, and I always had to plan how I would make small talk with people if I ever ran into someone. And when I had those awkward encounters, I always played it back in my head after and was very self-critical. And so as I came of college age, I, in so many words, I wanted to do something that I'd make a lot of money, but didn't have to interact so much with people, because I thought people were very terrifying. And so, because I was very analytical and good at math, and my parents encouraged it, I went to the business school, and it was a state university of New York school called Binghamton University.
Okay.
And within the business school, a lot of people were funneled into accounting. I think it just is something that looks good for the school. It's a career where you'll always have a job. That's something that people say about accountants all the time. You understand the language of business, and there's always a good market for it, and you'll always have a job, which in my experience was true. And as you can tell, even in a short description, it was a very fear-based way to arrive at a career path. I did it because it was what was expected of me, and because I didn't want to interact with people, and that it was just a good way to make a living. So in college, most of my memories of like, what do I want to do with my life were met with dread and anxiety, and I had no idea, but I just put my head down. A lot of my friends went into accounting. My parents were very happy that I went into accounting. And eventually, after stumbling my way through many sweaty interviews, I did land at what was considered a really good job. And I learned a lot in my initial career in accounting. And it was the right thing at the right time. I have zero regrets about doing it. I wasn't ready to explore bigger questions at that time. I needed to go through that kind of going through the motions path in order to put me on path where I am today.
Yeah.
And over time, but I don't think I was specific in my bio. I was in financial services accounting for 10 years. I think it ended up being 11, actually. And in the first few years, I was really happy doing it because my self-esteem was so low that it just felt good to be getting pats on the back and being told I was doing a good job. And I grew every single year. I grew more than what was expected of me. I was a very high performer, and that felt good.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the thing that I feared most about accounting, or not, the thing that I feared most about being in the workforce was talking to people. I thought accounting was a safe place to land. And what I quickly learned was that as I ascended the ranks, I needed to be running phone calls and talking to clients and eventually running my own team and navigating, talking to partners and leading trainings. And so that started me a little bit on a leadership development path because I recognized a lot of skill gaps. I needed to work on my public speaking, other channels of communication. And that's part of why I'm so grateful to be in a corporate job. Before I started my coaching practice was I learned so much while I was there, and I made really good money, which gave me flexibility and freedom to say, invest in Toastmasters or other public speaking classes and invest in other coaches and live in great areas in New York City. But over time, what I recognized was a couple of things. One, these skills that I thought were outside of my grasp started to become within reach. I started to recognize, I'm actually a pretty good communicator, and I am able to speak in front of groups and command a room pretty well. And if I could do that, what else can I do? Which was a huge question for me. That was not the way I looked at the world before that.
Yeah.
And couple that with, I started to more and more have this yearning, which was probably always within me, but I just didn't pay attention to really make an impact through my work in a way that felt more aligned with who I was. And accounting didn't feel like that. I remember the one specific conversation I had with my mom in my mid-20s where I said in so many words, I feel like I'm just taking money from the hands of really rich people and putting it into the hands of other really rich people. And I don't get a lot out of doing the work, and it doesn't really feel like I'm making a big difference. But at the time, I didn't know where else I could turn. I felt like this is the path, and I never had considered that there was another option. But over time, I started more and more to consider that there were options and other ways of being in the world. And we can get more into how I came about that and how I pieced together.
Yeah. I was just about to ask the conversation that you had with your mom about putting money from, rich people's hands over here and to rich people's hands over there. that was the conversation you had with her, but what was the lead up to that? What was it in the day to day that you were starting to see? When did you first start to notice that something wasn't quite resonating with the work compared to your virtues, your values? What was it that you were seeing or feeling?
Even the way that you phrased it of comparing it to your virtues and values, I didn't have the language for it yet.
Yeah. But
So
it's like you knew something was off. That's why I'm curious when you're in your mid-20s and you have that realization.
yes,
Because I think most of us in our 20s were just like, maybe the jobs that we were in, it wasn't, maybe we weren't crazy about our jobs, but we didn't have that pull to say something like that. So for you, I'm curious, because, your 20s is young. I'm curious what it is you saw, what you were seeing, what you were feeling, experiencing that, led you to share that with your mom.
I think one part of it was just a level of pain that I was in, which was I show up to work every day and mostly by and large, I don't enjoy it. And I'm surrounded by other people who don't enjoy it. So that didn't feel good, which already was a pretty big motivator. And these days I try not to be so motivated by pain. I also am considering my vision and where would I like to be. And still sometimes it requires pain in order to have the impetus for change. So that one thing I was very present to was this just doesn't feel right. I show up to work every day. I don't like it. Another thing I remember really ruminating about a lot was my parents a lot of times would say, if you climb the ladder, eventually you'll be a partner. You're not going to have to work so hard and you'll be making really good money. And I looked at all the partners and I thought to myself, their life doesn't look so good either. They're answering emails all the time. They don't seem happy. They seem pretty stressed out. Again, maybe not exactly the way I was phrasing it at the time, but they're going to Greece with their family and dealing with fire drills that we're dealing with and on the phone from the beach in Greece, handling this. They don't seem to be living a better quality of life. They just seem to have a lot of great material things, but also are pretty stressed out about the way life is and are always on. And there's real pressure in corporate accounting worlds and corporate worlds in general that I became dissatisfied with. So that was part of what led to it. There was also really maybe this was only the place I was in, but every place that I've been at, there's been some level of this. There was a lot of gossip and workplace unhappiness that felt icky in my body, and I felt like it just doesn't feel right. It feels crunchy, and I don't want to surround myself with people who are really miserable all the time. I wouldn't choose that in a life partner who's complaining all the time. So I'm not going to choose that for a career either.
You don't want to be around that energy.
Yes.
As you get older, you realize how much being in a room, even if you're not partaking in whatever it is, being in that environment, whether it's good, neutral, or just draining, how much it affects you when you leave. Like it's just ingrained in you. So I love that you point that out, that you were feeling that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, the other thing I started to talk about, well, I don't remember exact timeline, but when I started to do personal development type of work, at first it was just, I'm terrible at public speaking. I need someone to please help me. I did Toastmasters. I hired a one-on-one coach, and eventually I did another. It's called the Public Speaking Center for New York, which was a little bit of a safer place to land than Toastmasters. It was really targeted for people like me who, to the very prospect of hearing your voice at all in front of a room of even 5 people is terrifying. And so I remember that was really the first place I felt at home in a personal development type of arena, where I remember the waiting room for those classes. They were at 6 p.m. on work nights. And I would go once a week, but you can go as much or as little as you wanted to. In the waiting room, no one would talk because it was just a room full of really shy people. So we would all just sit there, not know what to say to each other. And when the class started, everyone, it was a little bit like progressive overload with a workout, in that you started with call it the 2-pound weights,
Mhm.
i.e. in your first class, you don't even say anything. You just watch everyone else speak. And then in the second class, you just answer basic questions about yourself. What's your name? Where are you from? And it progressively built up to, okay, tell a story in front of the group, give a speech about something that you love doing in front of the group. And it went all the way up to leading a seminar. But you didn't have to go there. That was after like 30 classes or something like that. And the reason I'm sharing this is that as I started to do those classes, I started to notice that it felt really good. It wasn't just, oh, I'm doing this out of necessity so that I can do my job well.
Yeah.
I started to notice this feels really good to challenge myself and do something hard. And I felt at times elated, like I wanted to skip home. I did this thing that was the biggest fear of mine and showed up, and God, that feels really good to do that. And so without even really being super aware of it at the time, I started to do that in other areas of my life. If I could start to make headway on this thing that I most fear in my life, public speaking, where else can I start doing this?
Yeah.
And I started doing it with my health, with my nutrition, fitness. I started listening to podcasts about how I can grow myself. And that's when it really started to open the door on, okay, I don't know what the heck I would ever do, but there is a way, and I'm going to look for it tirelessly.
Yeah, it's powerful. And from so many different points of view, from so many different angles. You and I can talk about it from that introversion aspect, but just in general, and again, cliche, like the world is your oyster. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
But again, cliches, they're surface level. You hear them, you're like, that's hokey, that's dumb, but it really is the case. How much you can, and I love the way that you spoke before about not liking something about the environment, the accounting environment. It's like, I don't want to be in an environment where I don't like something. It's not that I want to get away from something I don't like, but I want to go towards something I do like.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a major difference.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to head out somewhere, it's not that I want to get away from something, but I want to build towards something that, and in the process, you will get away from what you don't like. So there's so many different aspects that you just mentioned that I appreciate. The biggest one standing out was realizing how something feels good. And I'm curious how you would have done if you went to that maybe 10 years earlier. But I think maybe that confidence from your accounting world and your work and your success it was already programmed in you from work, from your accounting and your success in that field. I mean, tell me if I'm completely off, Mike, but that you already had some wins. So you already had some value to who you were, because we're all going through college, and college is just kind of like grades. But when you get into the workplace, you have that value that you're building. So I think that's incredible and I love the way you explained it, that it really was baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because my first foray into public speaking in college was just like communications class.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same as you. I was always terrified. I always had this social anxiety. Made it through. I had my friends. I had my activities, this and that. But I had this terror inside me.
Mm-hmm.
So with public speaking, that class, it was just kind of like, okay, you're going to watch each other. You're going to hear some tips. But if it had been something like what you went through, it's like, all right, little by little with just the facts, you don't have to think, it's not a pressure cooker. But I like the way that they kind of did it in that manner. So was this during your time in the accounting field? I know you did some Toastmasters and some training, but was this towards the tail end of that work and as you were transitioning out, or where did this land in the timeline?
I'm going to dot some I's, cross some T's, and if I miss the question, remind me.
Sure.
So I started in the workforce in 2014. Within 2 years or so 2016, I made it from associate to senior associate, and that's when my responsibilities started to pick up. I worked with a one-on-one coach who, let me rewind even from there. As a senior associate in 2017 or so, I was tasked with leading a training that was going to be in front of about 100 people. And I was based in New York, but it was going to be broadcast to the Boston office, Philadelphia office, and I think Chicago office. I might be wrong about that, but it was to multiple offices, which, as you can imagine, someone who at that point had never worked on public speaking was sent into a sheer tailspin and panic.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah. I'm right there with you, man. When you're talking about sweating and playing it out in your head, how's this going to play out? How did I do it? That overthinking. That I'm with you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So at that point, I decided I'm going to call one-on-one coach, because this was exactly the way I languaged it at the time. At least if I mess up in front of a one-on-one coach, it's only one person that's going to see what a fraud I am and not a whole group of people. So I felt like out of survival necessity, worked with a one-on-one coach first, because even though it wasn't quote unquote public speaking, it was practice, and it was one person who would be able to pay attention to me, which was very expensive, but was a very valuable investment. So I did, I think, 4 sessions. It was very helpful. It helped me deliver the training like the way that you described it. I was terrified. I couldn't sleep leading up to it. I was thinking about it the months leading into it, and especially the night or 2 or 3 before. I barely slept, but no one would have known it. I did a great job up there. I got through the presentation.
So was the coach a speaking coach?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It was strictly a speaking coach.
Okay.
And that's why I only did 4 sessions. It really just helped me get through the one thing that I wanted to get through. And then I put it aside for a little bit. So, okay.
Was it only 4 sessions for that big presentation?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, I ended up probably memorizing almost everything I said, but I ended up doing a pretty good job up there. And because I survived the one thing that I was working towards, I put it down for a while. But then I started to recognize, all right, this isn't going to be the only time. I'm now going to be leading more calls. I'm going to be running meetings more. I went to Toastmasters. That was the only public speaking organization that I was aware of. And at some point in your question, you asked, like, if you had started this 10 years ago, would you have been able to start it 10 years ago or something like that? My immediate response internally was absolutely not. And this Toastmasters story that I'm about to tell is a demonstration of that. So I go to Toastmasters. I go as a guest. It was on 38th and Lex. I remember 38th and Lexington Avenue in New York City, which was right near my apartment at the time. There was a room of about 60 people. I thought as a guest that I would be the only person sitting in that room. So I sign in. I just wanted to see what Toastmasters was all about. And in the very beginning of what I think this is true, in the very beginning of every Toastmasters, and Toastmasters is an organization that has charters everywhere in the world, they do an exercise called table topics in the very beginning. And so they had a few regular members come up and do table topics, which is they riffed on a sentence stem of some kind or a topic. And that day, the table topic was, you had to finish the sentence stem, and there I was, ... And so a few people went up there who were regular members, and they told these incredibly engaging stories. They might have been made up. They might have been true. I don't even remember. I just was struck at how effective they were as communicators. And then the person who led the class said, and now we're going to call a guest up to the front of the room. And they called up, who do you think? Mike Trugman.
What was your reaction? What was going on in your head?
So I put the freeze in fight, flight, or freeze. When you're under that level of fear, those are the options, and I froze. So what I decided in that moment when I heard my name was, I'm going to bend down. I actually had dropped a pen, I think, on the floor, or maybe I just out of survival and necessity ducked, but I put my head down. I was a guest, so no one in the room knew who I was. I went alone. I did not go up to the front of that room. I was like, no, I am not showing 60 people what a 6'2" frozen man who can't get a word out of his mouth looks like tonight. That's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what would have happened. And so to tie
But
back
meanwhile, they had the sign-in sheet, so they knew you were there,
yes.
right?
So
Okay.
somewhere, someone in the world is maybe thinking about that time that 8 years ago, they called a Mike Trugman to the front of the room, who was definitely in that room, but who didn't come to the front of the room. But that was the best choice for me at that time. That's what I felt was, all right, that person knows I'm in the room, but I ain't going up there.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really public humiliation, but I felt internal immense shame and humiliation. And I remember leaving Toastmasters thinking, I'm not ready for that. And I called my then girlfriend, my now wife, and spoke to her about it. I said my worst fear came true. I was called to the front of the room and totally froze. I couldn't even get up to the front of the room. And you can imagine someone who was very self-critical, what that might provoke in me. I was really, really hard on myself. And to my credit, I recognize, okay, if this isn't it, I get goosebumps thinking about this. Just like, this is the level of resilience that's available to all people. That didn't feel special to me. I said, all right, if Toastmasters isn't it, there's probably a group for people who are more beginner than that. And where does that exist? And I just Googled public speaking for people who are really anxious. And I found that organization, Public Speaking Center for New York. And this is one of the other T's I wanted to cross. I signed up for a session. On the website, it was very clear that anyone who was terrified was really welcome in this environment. And rest assured, you do not have to speak the first time you come to one of these offerings, to one of these sessions.
Yeah.
That felt really good for me. So I came, and in addition to the methodical nature of start small and build really slow and build really slow, another key ingredient to that, which I bring it into my coaching today, was the level of safety that was established. I remember the instructor many times over, when someone was very skilled, saying, he started or she started exactly where all of you are starting. And the only thing that differentiates any of you is the level of practice and repetition that you put in. So we all are here because we're nervous and scared. I, the instructor, also used to be really nervous and scared. And that's why I created this offering. And that taught me a lot about how to create safety, about how to create an environment that fosters personal growth. And as a result of that safety and knowing, oh, everyone in this room either is terrified or has been terrified, and I really know that, it started to help me release those old patterns and stories of, oh, I'm not the type of person that does public speaking. I'm awkward. I'm clumsy. I could never be good at this. Into, oh, wow, these people are now inspiration to me. I see what's possible if I show up on a regular basis. And so I did. Now, remind me of the question that that felt like important context. So the question in the beginning was, do you remember?
I forget what the question was that I had, like in this, I forget if it was the question about, could you have done it, 10 years ago, 10 years before that, when you were younger without the experience. I forget what the actual question was. It wasn't one that I have written down, but I mean, whatever I asked, I'm sure will come up again and we'll discuss. I guess the last question I did ask was where this fell in terms of when you were towards the tail end of your accounting career. So whether
Yes.
this was still while you were doing accounting, and then you seem like you were getting the light bulb went off for helping other people or what people go through. So I guess, how does this story transition and lead you to the work you're doing today? We can go there.
Yeah. And it did happen while I was at my accounting job. How did it support or help the transition of what I do today? as I started to improve in my own life across the board, so there was the professional development, there was the lifestyle changes. I went from 200 pounds to about 170 and was eating really well. And I saw the way that that was really impacting my brain. So I started to get really interested and curious about what makes people tick and what makes people operate at the highest level. So as I really started to open myself to that world, I, across the board, was really curious of how do I, in my own selfish way, become the best version of me, which was never a question in the past, but started to become a question. I was really interested in my potential and how I could continue to grow. And in, excuse me, in listening to a lot of podcasts and reading books, I started to see myself in these people that were really successful. I had never before this, it never even occurred to me that people that were successful could be scared.
Yeah.
Or have fears or had transcended being really shy, or that person that didn't speak up in class, or even in their 20s and 30s, that they would be someone who barely could open their mouth and now was a keynote speaker. That just never was a thought that I had. It never occurred to me because I had so much of my own shame that I was buried in my own story of people that are really successful are naturally confident and leaders are born that way and things like that. So as I started to listen to more personal development podcasts, I recognized, wow, all the people that really like helping other people, it's because they have overcome, transcended, worked through their own limitations, their own pains, and they wanted to help other people. And so that started to come online for me more and more and more is, wow, I am going through several transformations in my own life. They've impacted me profoundly. I want to help other people do the same thing. And that really started to take shape in 2018 or so, that I started actually buying personal development books. I was listening to podcasts like Impact Theory, encountering various types of people's work and recognizing I could do anything I really set my mind to, but also still feel incredibly lost along the way. Like it kind of lived as an idea or concept in my head, but my life, my everyday life was still looking the same in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So it was very interesting that I would like go off into my own little world, listen to these podcasts, feel great about myself. But then my everyday life was still, I'm an accountant and I don't really talk, like when I go out to dinner, I still kind of talk about the surface level stuff that I have always talked about. And anyway, I remember in end of 2018 was a particular low point in my accounting career. I was on a project that just felt like it was the ultimate, the pinnacle of soul sucking, and was really, really hard and stretching me and very demanding. And after Thanksgiving, my then girlfriend, now wife, and I took a trip to Thailand. And in those 2 weeks that we were in Thailand, there was a specific moment where I said to her, I'm ready to do, like, I'm at least going to reach out to a recruiter and explore other jobs. Because at that point I had just been at one professional job. I was at a big accounting firm, had never even interviewed anywhere else. And that got the specific ball rolling of I'm ready for a career change. Early 2019, I hired a life coach because therapy was kind of helping me, but didn't feel like it was moving me towards what I wanted in my career. And I was ready to start digging into those big questions of who am I and what do I really want in my life? And on the other side of working with a life coach for 3 months in the beginning of 2019, I started a blog about meditation, mindfulness, the healing power of food, exercise, a little bit about my journey with public speaking. And then my coaching practice has evolved a lot in the 6 years since then, but that was the first real public facing stand I took that said, I want to help other people undergo the life changes that I've been able to. At that point, mostly on my own, just by watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts and reading books. And I was ready to as someone I've been following closely lately says, come out of the spiritual closet. He's ready to say, this is a way that I operate in this world.
Hmm. Can you say more about that?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Like coming out of the spiritual closet, put some words to it. What or sensations or feelings or thoughts?
There was a judgment that what I was doing at the time was helpful for me, but that it was weird. And when I talked about the split selves that were happening, I guess some of the changes I made were very socially acceptable, i.e., I was very strong looking, muscular, eating well. And some I judged as not socially acceptable, like I meditate twice a day when I'm at work. And I thought self-help was like a weird thing to do. And my friends at the time, I remember on my Instagram, I posted a couple of inspirational quotes on my personal Instagram. And some of my friends thought I was being sarcastic because that was kind of the way that I operated. I was very judgmental of people who were spiritual or tried to like uplift other people. I don't know. There was something about that just felt strange to me. And so coming out of the spiritual closet to me meant owning that not only was I someone who was reading the self-help books and was listening to the podcast, it meant this is an awesome aspect of myself that I'm willing to take a stand for and talk about. And that it's not really serving me or anybody, that I'm in my own little corner of the universe, just like making these changes, but not talking about them in any sort of meaningful way.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by that.
What's incredible about the whole anxiety angle area of life is just my interpretation of it, Mike, but I'd love to get your thoughts, is just how much of a certain kind of energy, and there may be shyness, right? There may be fear in it. But for me, how much of that is just stuff inside of us we need to get out?
Yes.
Like a certain energy tapping into something. So when we're younger and we're going through those hallways and feeling those certain things, it's like you just haven't found your outlet yet. And you're not supposed to as a kid. Like you're just not supposed to. We're all built so different. But it's incredible how when you do find that thing that is in your spiritual closet, that really it's like with this, with something else, there may be stuff hidden beneath the surface that I'm going to keep back. If I'm in accounting, I'm just going to do what they need me to do, but the rest is going to be held back. And then when you move to coming out of that spiritual closet, it's like, all right, now, I'm not going to show everything, but now this is where I can put that kind of energy that's just kind of been spinning inside of me.
Yes.
Just from my own experience, I just know that when you find that thing that you can fire on all cylinders, because when we first met face to face virtually, when we talked this morning or right before I hit record, I talked about how, just getting that energy out there, putting that stuff out there, whatever it is that drives you, and how nobody believes that I'm an introvert because I love speaking in front of large crowds. I love talking in front of people about coaching and leadership. I love, doing this with partners and guests like you. And I've told people, listen, there are times where I get off an hour and a half long conversation. I feel like I want to curl up under my desk, because all that energy is amazing. But the way that I'm programmed, it's kind of like I need to come down from that and relax for a bit. But when you hit your stride and when you find your thing, that's why when you said a couple minutes ago that you were taking in all this stuff, podcasts, books, but there was like nothing to channel it into. But now we get to that point in the story where you find that, where you find how you want to put that out there, utilizing those tools as input and then showing the world what your output is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's incredible.
Exactly. And it's reminding me a couple things. One, I think it's Brene Brown who has a quote. It's something like, shame loses all its power over you as soon as you shed light on it.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you start to, a lot of us hold in things that we reject aspects of ourselves and say that doesn't belong out in the world. And so we keep it locked in. And as soon as we just coming out of the spiritual closet,
Yeah,
it's,
I believe it.
It's like, oh, wow, it feels good.
Because at that point, there's nothing you can hold over my head.
Correct.
Whether, in reality, somebody's trying to hold something over your head, or which most of the times is our own perception.
Mm-hmm.
That if I say something, this is how people will react. That's where like that fearlessness comes from when you have, or that confidence comes from.
Yes.
You can't hold anything over my head. And it's not about me versus the outside world, but there's nothing that anybody can hold over your head, because you've found the path you want to go down.
Mm-hmm.
You found the tools you want to utilize. You found the way that you want to share with the world. It's like,
yes,
what at that point, what can anybody, short of harming my family or, physical harm, short of that,
mm-hmm.
how can anybody touch me if I'm being in tune with who I really am? So I love the way that I see it. I love it in your story. That's great. That's amazing.
Yes. And that's so being open about my greatest fear, one of my greatest fears was that sharing about my fear of public speaking. That was like the biggest form at the time of coming out of the spiritual closet, was saying, I went to a lot of public speaking classes and here's the way that I have so far transformed. I carried previously a lot of shame about that. I didn't want my friends to know that I was the type of person that invested in public speaking classes, because what my programming at the time was that made me less than. I should be naturally good at this thing. I shouldn't have to work on it.
Yeah, I get that.
So yes, and what I recognized was it's reminding me, there's a guest I had on my podcast. His name is Dr. John DeMartini. And this was like the most extreme version I've ever seen of this. But he said over the course of his life, he's looked at every single adjective in the dictionary. It was like 4,000 words or something like that, and located it within himself. He said, yeah, I am that thing. Like sometimes I'm an asshole, sometimes I'm a brat, sometimes I'm shy, sometimes I'm abrasive. Right? He just took every word and was like, I'm going to claim it so that no one else can use it over me. And it's so powerful. It's so powerful because like, this is a stance that I take these days, is we all are so dynamic and so many things. And it's usually the stuff that we try and pretend that we aren't that has the most power over us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what contributed to my anxiety was trying to hide my, anxiety. So what's helped me, especially, I mean, I've gotten a lot better over the years, still have it, right? But what's helped me especially is being on this podcast, sharing this with people where we get into conversations like this. And I've shared things on here that I haven't shared with friends, not because I didn't trust anybody, but because it's come up. It's a topic you're talking about. Like I share, you go back and forth. But it's incredible how much of that goes away because most of the anxiety is trying to keep all the plates spinning, right? You're trying to keep appearances, that facade, that once you call it out and say what it is, it's like, okay, that was a lot of the anxiety was trying to appear perfect or put together, whatever the wording is. Now that I'm like, no, that's it's not. It just isn't. Now it's like, okay, now you're working from the true foundation.
Yes.
It's not that castle or house built on sand or castle built on sand. It's who you really are. So I appreciate everything you shared about that.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Mike. So very quickly before we get to the rest of the questions. So what was the jumping off point? What did it look like when you actually launched your own coaching services?
It's its own massive journey. Well, so April 2019, I launched the blog. I start writing about meditation, nutrition, my public speaking journey, etc. I enrolled at a coach certification called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition because I wanted to teach people the healing power of food. Like that was something that had a profound impact on me. I started to recognize the way that a lot of my kind of everyday cloudy fogginess started to naturally be lifted because of, among other things, the way that I was eating and moving. So I started to feel, this has been the sense of a lot of the things I talk about these days. Why don't we learn about this in more detail? These are the things that actually impact our life the most. I want to contribute to that. So when I enrolled for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I thought it was going to be to teach people the healing power of food. It opened my worlds to a lot of different things. There's a very common coaching tool that your listeners are probably familiar with at this point, called the Wheel of Life or the Circle of Life.
Mhm.
And it has finances, well-being, relationships, etc., career, meaningful work. There's different elements of it, but I think a lot of people have seen that. And because it was a holistic health coaching program, we did a little bit in all of the areas, which gave me a taster into kind of what makes a good life. If you were to build it from ground up, what constitutes a good life? And towards the end of my program, so early 2020, right before COVID, I started working with people for free just to get reps in. I had never, coaching was a cool concept and idea, and I always naturally was someone that my friends and peers could open up to, but I had never actually sat across from someone and said, this is a service that I offer, and we're going to do this for an hour, 12 times, once every week or once every 2 weeks. At the time, I was meeting weekly, 1 hour, 12 sessions, free. I just wanted to get the reps in, and I worked with somewhere between 5 and 10 people for free, built a little bit of a foundation. And I recognized that every person who worked with me would initially talk about food or wanting to lose weight, but that over time we started to talk about all the things. We'd talk about maybe a fight that they had with their partner or yearnings that they had in their work. I don't think that X field is the right thing for me. I don't know if I want to be in finance, law, whatever it is. That might not be the thing for me either. I want to start a blog or start a YouTube channel. And in the first year or so, I didn't work with any paying clients, but I learned a lot about what happens when you have a series of long conversations with someone. And one of the insights that emerged from that was, I don't want to just be talking about food. I want to help people. The building blocks of change across the board are very similar.
Yeah.
It's very easy on a how-to level to talk about, here's how you lose weight. Here's a good workout plan. Here's how you register a business, form an LLC, just go do X, Y, Z, and then your business is started. And here's how you market it. I'll tell you everything you need to know about marketing. It's pretty much never actually about that. It's about your own internal perception of what you believe about yourself, what you believe about money, what you believe about people, what you fear would happen if you started to do. These are all things, of course, but in the first 50 minutes of this conversation, you could see there were things that I was in a parallel way working through on my own too, which is one of the interesting things about a coaching practice. You're kind of always working through your own stuff as you support people through theirs.
Yeah. That's come up on here that, just because someone's a coach or a guide or whatever, it doesn't mean that they have their own stuff 100% together. It's
absolutely not.
The respect for a coach is that they're committed to their craft, that they're curious, that they want to help, but it's never to assume that they have the answers. It's just about their work in progress. Most coaches have their own coaches, therapists have their own therapists. So I've said that, we've shared that on here plenty of times.
For sure.
But it's always important to share that.
It is. And what a relief that is, I think, for coaches, because no one's perfect. We're all humans.
Yeah.
And so anyway, over a little bit of time, when I started to charge, at the time, it was a low fee. I think I was charging $50 a session. I started working with, I was positioning myself as a life coach, because I wanted to help people in all areas of their life. And I started to get a few paying clients, and I was like, I can't believe that someone's going to pay me at first $50 and then $95 a session. There's, that first exchange of, whoa, people are sitting down across from me and paying to talk to me. That's the way I looked at it. I know coaching's a lot more than that, but that started to give me at least the beginning inklings of, okay, this is something that it's possible to do for a living. And I signed up for the coach certification. Some people go to coach certifications just to enhance their corporate career or to develop a skill set.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that. I signed up with the full intention of, I want to do this for a living. I want to start a business doing this, whatever it takes to do that. And so towards the end of 2020, I started to see, okay, people will pay for this. People are paying me for it and enjoying it, leaving me glowing testimonials while they're paying me for it. And it was still just the very beginnings, but I would continue to raise my fees. People would continue to be impacted by the work we were doing together. And towards the end of 2021, I went part-time into the accounting job I was at. I was able to negotiate a part-time role, which there's lots of details that we're passing through in this conversation, but was able to negotiate a part-time role while getting my coaching business off the ground. I started my podcast at that point. And, it was a little bit of it sounds like a nice linear story. It was a little bit of a mess. The 2021, at one point, I put in 6 months notice and said I was going to leave altogether. My business wasn't nearly far enough along at that point. I also got married in 2020. So there were lots of big financial considerations that, frankly, I wasn't paying enough attention to. I just felt like I could do this and I believe in myself, but the business wasn't nearly at a sustainable level to be leaving at. So 2021 to 2024, I think I fell into a lot of the trap that a lot of coaches fall into, which was I just was focused on becoming a better coach and wasn't at all focused on the business of coaching. So my business kind of stayed flat. I was making $10,000 a year or so from coaching, working with a couple of clients at any given time, also making good salary from my accounting career. But my business was staying flat. And eventually I started in 2024. This was also on the other side of being a dad. And that's a whole other journey that really lit a fire under my tush about how do I want to model behavior to my son. And I really made big financial, energetic, and time commitments into the business of coaching in 2024 and basically doubled the fees I was charging, and the caliber of people I was working with started to really go up. And it was the beginning of this year, 2025, that I finally left. And I have a whole podcast. We can link to that in the show notes for this one, maybe, of that explains the full journey that went into me leaving, because that in and of itself was a mess that I think a lot of people can probably learn from. But I, at least at that point, was charging thousands of dollars to work with me, that people were willing to pay it, that they were doing really good work. And that led to me leaving in February of this year.
It's amazing. So Mike, you've spoken about who you were as a kid, how you felt as a kid, how it applies to your path, your work now. But with the direct question, does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing? How do you reconcile? So with this direct question, what kind of words do you put to that connection between who you were as a kid and how effective you are with your clients today?
Mm-hmm. Who I was as a kid, and it makes perfect sense that I am where I am, was very compassionate, understanding, loving, saw the best in people. I think that was always there, and always had an optimistic attitude about people and about life. So even though I was really hard on myself, I was pretty good at seeing the best in people, and always was a safe place to land for people. So awesome. I alluded to this a little bit before, that my friends would always open up to me about relationship challenges and things like that. And so that's a big part of coaching, is that people feel safe with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mike, what do you consider your superpower?
That's probably it right there. People, I'm a safe place to land. People really feel safe with me and that they can bring all of who they are.
Yeah, I wonder, coaches are good. Great coaches are out there. But I wonder how many people may feel productive. They may feel like they're making progress with their coach. But I wonder how many are out there, coaches that really do provide that safe place to land where somebody can be fully themselves with that coach so they can really do the right work. So as a coach, as a human, I appreciate anytime somebody can provide that for someone. So that's amazing. And then before we jump into the book, what does leadership mean to you? How do you describe great leadership?
Are you familiar with the Conscious Leadership Group, John?
Heard of it. Some of the knowledge and the information, but not I can't speak to it.
I'm not going to get the exact wording, but I like their definition of a leader or leadership. A leader is someone who takes responsibility for how they show up. So, I look at self-leadership as understanding myself. What are my triggers? How do I operate? What am I motivated by? What are my values? Am I taking space to regulate my nervous system? How can I show up as cleanly as possible for myself so that when I am wearing the hats of business owner, coach who's holding space for others, romantic partner, friend, dad, I am the cleanest space for them. And there are lots of ways we can talk about this, but are you familiar? There's another person that has influenced my work somewhat, especially as a parent. Do you know who Dr. Becky Kennedy is?
No.
Well, she talks about sturdy leadership, and she does it. The demonstration that she has is a pilot who is there's three different types of pilots is the way that she explains it. And let's just pretend we're on a flight and there's a lot of turbulence. And so all the people in the back of the plane, the passengers, start to get really frightened. Two examples of bad leadership, one example of sturdy leadership. So one is everyone needs to calm down. I've got this. We need to make sure that we're not panicking. I'm not panicking. We're not panicking. And that is kind of like getting in the panic and anxiety with the passengers.
Yeah.
Then there's another version of this that's like totally tuning out, ignoring, judging everyone. There's nothing to be scared about. You guys should just be, we're going to be fine. Everyone needs to, there's that kind of more avoidant style.
Yeah. And
then there's the pilot who gets on the speakerphone. What's it called on a plane? We'll call it an intercom speaker, and goes, "Hi, everyone. This is the pilot speaking. We're experiencing some turbulence right now. I know that it can feel a little bit scary, but I've been through this a million times before. So we're just going to be going through some turbulence for the next few minutes or so. And on the other side of that, we should be having a smooth ride. Thank you for your patience and cooperation." Something like that. And, that to me is leadership, is someone who is using their life experiences and modeling to the people around them. And the way that I look at it most is as a parent and a business owner and as a partner, but there's all the ways. And saying, we're going to be fine. We're safe. We've been through this before. And, different times call for different forms of leadership. But I look at it this way, as you're modeling to people like, I see you, I understand how you're feeling, I understand what you're thinking about, and we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. You should be a pilot, by the way. Great pilot voice. All right, Mike, let's jump into the book. Why don't you introduce the book that we're going to be discussing? After everything we talked about, I don't think anybody will be surprised by the choice, but why don't you introduce the book, maybe how you came to be, a little bit about the book, however you want to introduce it.
Yeah. The book is called Quiet by Susan Cain.
I got my copy right here.
Right on. Mine is on my bookshelf right behind over yonder. And It's interesting. I didn't plan for this to happen. I actually hadn't thought about this, but the reason I came across Susan Cain and her work is because the Public Speaking Center for New York advertised Susan Cain as a former attendee of the course.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So Susan Cain, it featured in the book Quiet, the public speaking group that I ended up doing. And Charles DeCagno is I don't know if he's still the instructor, but he was mentioned in Quiet, and Quiet is mentioned on the Public Speaking Center for New York website.
Okay.
So at that point, I was already interested in podcasts. She was a guest on Tim Ferriss, so I listened to her conversation with Tim Ferriss on his podcast, and she mentioned it on the podcast as well. And so she spoke about her book, and I bought the book. And it's funny because as I make sense of my past, I must have in 2018, 2019, I must have encountered that other people who were quiet or fearful were successful, but I had never really devoted time and energy into a book to really understand that in myself. And I bought Quiet early COVID 2020. And that book, among other things, demonstrated to me that we're all wired differently, and that people like us, John, you can be someone who finds it at times draining to be around other people, and who doesn't show up in a group of people as someone who would be naturally gregarious and confident, and someone who can shake hands and take names. But that not only is that not a bad thing, that a lot of the most effective leaders in the world are also people that struggle to make connection in that way. And there's a lot of different ways for people to build meaningful connections. And there's a manifesto in the very beginning of the book. I think it's like the 10 things that every introvert needs to know, or something like that.
Let me go through these real quick.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, for sure. And while you're getting there, just remember one of them is one meaningful relationship is worth a fistful of business cards.
Yeah, one genuine new relationship. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So a manifesto for introverts. Number 1, there's a word for people who are in their heads too much, thinkers. Number 2, solitude is a catalyst for innovation. Number 3, the next generation of quiet kids can and must be raised to know their own strength. I love that one. Mm-hmm. Number 4, sometimes it helps to be a pretend extrovert. There will always be time to be quiet later. That's one I want to come back to. Mm-hmm. That one's interesting just because one of my closest friends, also an introvert, a little more than me. And just in our constant conversations about networking and this and that, me working with clients, whatever it may be, I've come to realize that even though we're all different, I think we have to meet other people halfway.
Yeah.
So it can't be somebody coming completely to me as the introvert, or me going completely to the extrovert. So I think there is an accountability. So sometimes it helps to be a pretend extrovert, as comfortable as you feel. Number 5, but in the long run, staying true to your temperament is key to finding work you love and work that matters. Number 6, one genuine new relationship, as you said, is worth a fistful of business cards. 7, it's okay to cross the street to avoid making small talk. Oh God. Yeah. I remember I remember where I was standing, who I was with, which direction I was facing when somebody told me, God, you're bad at small talk.
Oh, John.
And at that point, I'm like, oh my God, but it makes complete sense. Even now, I'll guide small talk. I'll do my part in small talk to get to certain things I want to hear. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear us just repeating a list of what's happened to you, what's happened to me. Those are great, but I want, I don't know if I'm going to be on this planet tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, we don't have to go into an hour and a half long conversation like I am with Mike, but let's talk about some real stuff. So I still find myself doing that. Number 8, quiet leadership is not an oxymoron. Mm-hmm. Number 9, love is essential. Gregariousness is optional. And number 10, a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, in a gentle way, you can shake the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And this book, I think, is from 2012. I forget how I came across it, but I probably read it maybe 2017, 2018. And it was eye-opening. It was putting not a label, but an idea, a
yes.
model to the way that I've always felt. It was like, holy shit, you
Mhm.
finally feel seen,
Yes.
understood, and you understand yourself.
Bingo. Bingo. And I think the book is a giant permission slip of you are exactly fine as you are, which is huge. I mean, a lot of the ways that we show up most effectively, which we've already spoken about it at great length today, is when you're not hiding from any aspect of yourself, you're going to show up the most effectively. So if you,
Yeah.
there is a worldview of just carrying around forever, oh my God, it's so bad that I'm quiet and I should judge myself for being quiet. And
Yeah.
it's just that book really opened the door of, no, this is a strength that you can harness. That was a total game changer for me.
Yeah. I like it because now, as you just said, as I said before, you can put a word out there. You can explain it a little better. Hey, this is just the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, man, one of my roommates, anytime some of her people would come over from work, at a certain point, I'd just get up and go in my bedroom, watch TV in there. And she'd open my door. You're being antisocial. Later you understand I'm not being antisocial. Socialize, man. I'll fucking cook for you. I don't care. But it's not my scene.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife just said it to me yesterday. We had family over. Her parents are going to Florida for the winter. They sold their house. So our house is like right in the middle of where all the kids are. So everybody met at our house. It's September 28th yesterday. It's like 85 degrees out. It's blazing hot. There's not enough room on the deck for everybody. It's a small deck. The kids are playing in the yard. Everybody's got food. We got beer for everything's taken care of. So I just go in. I'm like, it's too hot in here. I gave the shade to my guests. I'm standing in the sun. I see my in-laws all the time. Now everybody's catching up because they don't see each other. And I just go inside. I put on the Premier League and I'm just watching soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Then she comes in and half jokingly, maybe he's like, you're being antisocial. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, look, we're facilitating social activity. It's hot out there.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you know it, in like 20, 25 minutes, everybody had come in because it was just too hot out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I tell you that is, it's one of those things explaining who you are.
Yes.
Like, I love every single person out there on that deck. I love all the kids that are outside. Everybody has their thing. So I'd rather come inside, relax, and be relaxed for when they come in and we can shoot the shit inside,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just being miserable and anxious out there with them.
Yeah.
And I like explaining that that's where I'm coming from because I want people to know I will go to bat for you.
Yeah.
The way that I operate in the everyday may not be the same way you do. One of my best friends is gregarious, and we lived together. And after work, I would have to come home and decompress. She's a chatterbox. She would come home, like chat my ear off, and I would just sit there watching TV, really just vegging out. Sooner or later, she'd be asleep. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We just have different types of personalities, but
Yeah.
it's all to say that right now you can put an idea to it, you can put a model to it, a label, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and you can reassure people that even though I'm this way, it doesn't mean I'm there any less for you or the situation or the environment or the work
Mm-hmm.
than anybody else.
Yeah.
That's it. Just that simple sentence, language I didn't have, when we were younger.
Yes. Me too.
And
your story is a very simple demonstration of effective leadership. You took care of yourself, and then the rest of the party followed their way in because you, in that moment, it might seem like a trivial example, but you in that moment said, it's hot outside and, I am going to bring myself to the shade, and it's okay. Even though other people might have a should judgment, I'm air quoting if you're not watching on video, of, that you're antisocial and you should be talking to people. It's a party. You gave voice through your actions of, hey, this is what I'm going to do to take care of myself. And people ended up following suit. So that's a great example.
It's funny. That was just yesterday, Mike.
Yeah.
That was like 12 hours ago. That was that took place. And I say that only because I want other people. Maybe they're at that point where they're comfortable. They know what it is, introversion, extroversion, wherever they land, anywhere. Just that it is fine to, instead of grappling with it, oh my God, should I go inside? Should I not? 15 years ago, I would have sat out there in the sweltering heat, sweating, miserable, not talking because I'm miserable. As opposed to now, it's like, you know who you are. Hopefully you've expressed to all these people how much they mean to you. I'll be inside.
Yeah.
Like, stay as long as you want. Come inside if you want. Let me know if you need a beer. I served some drinks and then just went back to my game. I don't know. It's just, you said the word permission, and that's a great way to put it. Permission to yourself.
Yeah.
Not that you need permission from others, but permission to yourself, for yourself, to again, that kind of leadership, to get what you need so that you can serve others. So you have that honesty with you, with yourself, instead of the way I suffered internally. I can't do what I need to do. Like,
yeah.
I just hope that people really do understand, and you spoke to something great before where you talked about how a turning point for you was when you realized that you weren't the only one, that others go through it. Because I think so often it's an isolating feeling, and then that keeps you back even more, because in your head, you're like, oh my God, I'm the only one. But then when others are talking about it, it gives you permission to talk about it. So it takes that boulder off your shoulders. You can be a little more yourself. So I love that you provided that. When you hear that there are people out there experiencing the same things, whether it's this or something else, it's reassuring to you.
It's so much more fun.
Yeah.
And when you let go of a man should, a woman should, your personality should, a parent should, and learn to listen to what's happening and occurring inside of yourself, life is a lot better.
So, Mike, for you, when you read this book, where were you in your journey? Because then I'm curious, after reading, what kind of steps or what kind of shifts you saw in yourself as a result of reading the book.
Where I was in my journey was I had enrolled at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and was still I was at my second accounting job, actually, or maybe even my third. So I was still full-time accounting. What specific steps did I take after reading the book? Well, I remember, you could probably pull this up right now too. I think there's a review on the back of the book that says something to the effect of, this book about being a quiet introvert made me want to yell from a mountaintop. Do you have it? Do you have it pulled up in front of you?
There's a lot of testimonials. There's like pages and pages of people that have read the book. Do you remember if it was on the back?
I think it's on the back. And if it's not.
Oh, yeah. By Daniel Gilbert, author of Stumbling on Happiness. Quote, a smart, lively book about the value of silence and solitude that makes you want to shout from the rooftops.
Yes. So, like, I don't remember exactly neat, buttoned up specific actions or outcomes that resulted, but that sentiment was very present for me, that I just felt a lot more relaxed and free and wanted to talk about it. I remember sharing it with other people that I thought might benefit from it, and I shared it with my wife. And it's the type of book that giving it to someone, to any type of person, could be really helpful, because it helps you better understand. Everyone knows someone in their life who's on the quieter side, so it helps to better understand people. And so as a coach, that's one of the things I'm always trying to do, is not only better understand myself, but better understand humans and human nature. And it helped me to recognize, okay, well, quiet is just one quality, which this book really helped me feel seen and accept myself more fully, and was that permission slip. And there's all sorts of other qualities that people carry that they probably hold shame about or judge as not good, that I think I was already on the path, but this is one of many examples that helped me see that we're all different. We all have unique expressions, unique qualities, probably default to a certain personality type, but all I believe are like really good inside, and that self-acceptance is a foundational skill and quality that helps people to live more freely as themselves. And that's like the most beautiful thing that I could wish for anyone, is that you really fully embrace and accept yourself. And that's an ongoing journey for me. There's definitely parts of myself that I continue to work through. It's a lifelong practice, but that was the greatest gift that this book gave me.
Yeah. I think with the vulnerability of the times, I think with COVID having hit, I think with the frailty of life, I think with, the introversion, I try to show up as best as I can for people in the moment. I'm really not the type to save what I have to say for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much shit going on in the world. There's too much natural causes you just don't know. So that's why I say, for that party with all those people, like, they know I love them because I tell them all the time. I'm there for them all the time. Like, I'm a hugger when I see them, a kiss on the cheek. Like, I don't care. So that's why, like, for me, the way that I operate in that is, if I'm the type of person that every once in a while needs solitude, or just not that loudness, not that gregariousness, when I am there, I'm fully present. And I try to show even more because I want to. It's almost like, not that I have to, but I like kind of overcompensating for this other need, because I know not many people have the same interpretation or understanding of what that is for me. Mm-hmm. So I don't want them to see it as anything else. So I want to be there fully when I am present.
Yeah.
So that leads me to ask you, Mike. So for you, your introversion, right? Because I mean, for me, it seems like something that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
How does that show up for you? What does your self-care look like? What does that look like now, especially as, an entrepreneur, husband, father to a young child? How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah.
And I know you work out, you're very healthy, but what does that look like for you, if you could paint the picture for us?
Mm-hmm. I'll answer the kind of direct ways, and then one of the interesting byproducts of self-acceptance. So, specific ways I take care of myself. I definitely make sure that on most days I wake up before my son. My son's 2. He's on average waking up at a certain time. I wake up before him. I do breath work. I meditate. I journal. So get clear. Breath work is really good for nervous system regulation. Meditation's good for awareness of thoughts, and journaling really amplifies awareness of thoughts and what am I feeling and what do I want to create today. If I look at every day as a tapestry that I get to create my day, journaling is a great place to slow down and be present to that. So that's one element of it. I take lots of walks outside. I am pretty good about not being on my phone, so I'm very cognizant of the inputs in my life. I used to have more judgment of this, and I still grapple with it, honestly, but I tend not to watch a lot of the news, or even for me, I used to be obsessed with sports. I don't read sports updates. I'm really plugged into...
Well, when, Knicks and Jets, you're not going to race there, right?
Hey, the Knicks made the conference finals last year.
Yeah, that's true.
They did. They were the Final
true.
Four. They were
Very
2
true.
games away from the NBA finals.
I know.
And yes, don't get me wrong. At that point, I was listening to all sorts of Knicks content.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you.
But, yeah, I guess even just having the awareness of I choose what comes into my life and I let go of what doesn't. I'm very aware of the type of people that are in my life. There are people that I still love and are really close friends in some ways, but I don't see them as much or engage with them on a daily basis. So I'm very aware of my environment and aware of what contributes to my energy or lack thereof. I've done lots of research about sleep, nutrition, movement, which we've spoken about. So I generally eat pretty well. And I work with a coach. I've almost always worked with a coach since that first coach I had in 2019, which helps me deepen my self-understanding, my self-awareness, how I operate in the world, and learn a lot about my rhythms. I mean, I am just in a lot of the way I'm oriented right now is, where am I? Where is my Trugman? Like, what am I feeling? What am I thinking about? What's my body communicating to me? And because I've deepened my awareness of that, I'm more in tune with, oh, I could use a break right now, or it doesn't make sense for me to schedule coaching sessions back to back to back to back. I always have at least a 15-minute buffer, usually more than that in between calls. So that gives you a good idea of how I take responsibility for my energetic state. I think that's important, introvert or extrovert. It's important to know where your energy is at and where you are at. But as someone who leans more towards solitude and introversion, I'm very aware of the way that my day is organized, and so that's one way to look at it. The weird paradox of it all is that since I have accepted more of myself, and there's a famous Carl Rogers quote about this, the curious paradox is that when you accept yourself as you are, you're free to change. So the weird paradox of this is when I've embraced, like, okay, Mike, it's okay that you're shy. It's okay that you're quiet. It's great to have solitude. Like, these are all strengths. I've noticed that my appetite for conversation has gone up, that I'm less, because I'm not trying to protect myself so much from, oh my God, are they going to see that I'm awkward and quiet? I am more available. Part of what contributes to shyness is the kind of overthinking, overanalyzing, what are they going to think of me? Which isn't to say that it's never present, but it's less present by the day overall. And so because of that, I'm more free to just be with a person and be curious. Now, I do my best work one-on-one. That's why I'm a coach that mostly does one-on-one work. And most of the connection and networking I do is one-on-one. And if I'm at a giant wedding, I do my best to connect with people one-on-one and not be the one who's like dancing in front of the whole group of people, or, guys, guess what? I have a funny story that I'm going to tell in front of 30 people. Like, that's not naturally my temperament. But I now that I'm speaking about it too, I guess I've just like naturally found the way that I operate best and go towards that. Like at a dinner party, I will gravitate towards one person and talk to them and ask them questions and things like that.
Yeah. This is part of, it's almost like a follow-up to that question, but how did you see things shift, your priorities, your values, not necessarily the self-care, because when you have a kid, obviously you got to get that self-care in, but how did you see what we're covering in this conversation change for you? And I mean that only because, I'll bring it back to me just for a sec, just so you can kind of see what my thinking is and where I'm coming from. Having kids for me almost bolstered my confidence, I guess, because you realize guys with our kind of mentality when we were younger, we were always afraid of what might be taken away from us, what we might lose by stepping up, or, just perceptions or reality, whatever it may be, whatever it looked like for you. Then when I had kids, it's kind of like, okay, here's something to really worry about. Here's something with meat and substance that I can't lose. Here's something with meat and substance and a soul that I need to protect. This is my priority. Before, my priority was like self-protection against whatever fears. Now this is a reality. So for me, it's allowed me to have more confidence because you're not bolstering up your fear, killing yourself with thoughts of what might happen. Now it's kind of like, all right, my energy goes here. Everything else can do whatever it's going to do as long as my family's protected. So it's pressure, but it's a little more freedom because you have what you need to protect embodied.
Yes.
So when you had your son, what changed in you in terms of what we're talking about here?
Yeah. To your point about that, on one hand, it strengthened my ability to just step into leadership because it's required on a regular basis. Like if my son starts running and towards the street and there's cars coming, simple act of leadership, pick him up and hey, we don't run in the street when there's cars driving, things like that. There's just the everyday kind of mundane actions that are required of a parent, and simple things too, like cleaning the bottles and cooking dinner. Like these are things that everything gets amplified and was amplified for me when I stepped into being a dad. So that's one part. But I think the bigger part for me, what was coming up for me as you were asking the question, was there's a more direct feedback loop on when if my energy is wonky, i.e., I'm not taking care of myself, not sleeping well, not eating well, don't have enough space on my calendar, and I'm leaving my workday drained. When I'm with my son in the evenings, if my energy is not good, then I'm getting, oh, this is direct feedback that something's got to change about the way that I'm operating, because I don't want to be grumpy and snappy and all the things with my son. So I think it's common for a lot of when responsibilities kick up, it can crowd out some of the other self-care type of things. For me, that happened when he was first born out of necessity. Like, obviously it was waking up in the middle of the night and not sleeping.
Yeah.
But as a routine started to come back together, it drove up, it strengthened my ability to take care of myself, because I see that I see the way it allows me to show up as the best version of myself for my son and for my family. And if so, my son, he's 2 years old. He can say things like, take a deep breath, or he imitates me doing breath work sometimes because he sees me doing those things so that I can take care of myself. So that
That's good though.
It's
That's
great.
Good. That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's so good. I want to expose him to that. I want him I want it to be demonstrated clearly to him that there are all these different beautiful ways that you can take care of yourself. And that's great that you have that level of awareness. And that's not to say that I get it perfect at all, but it's being a parent has strengthened my commitment to self-care, because I see it's not just about me. It's every day I want to show up as the best possible version of myself for my family.
Mike, one last question or a few more questions. You had mentioned therapy before.
Yeah.
Was that during your professional life? Was it younger? Like what did that look like for you? What was it for?
I had 2 or 3 different stints in therapy. The first was before any quote unquote personal development work. So there was it wasn't even a girlfriend, but there was a breakup of sorts. I really liked a girl that ended up breaking it off with me. And that was like the most heartbroken I had ever felt. So I went to therapy first out of pain from that relationship, is for lack of a better way of calling it.
Yeah.
And that was really just like, I'm really in pain. I remember speaking to that therapist a little bit about how anxious and wound up I was at work, and she in a good way was dismissive of like, that's just like run of the mill everyday stuff. Like, you're fine. It's normal to have anxiety, but that it didn't really feel like it served me to be with someone who was just telling me like, you're fine. I was like, it doesn't feel like that. So the second therapist was actually after my life coach that I hired in 2019. And that was to continue. It was partly just relationship stuff. And at that point I was thinking about proposing to my wife, and so there was life stuff. There was also just like, I feel out of place in my career still. Like, I started this blog, but how do I make money doing this? And like, what do I do in the meantime? It doesn't feel like there's an actual end in sight. And so those were the 2 stints I had in therapy. They both stopped after a short amount of time. I think that therapy can be a great thing. It didn't end up being something that felt like it was really serving me.
All right, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. I heard you mention it before, and I just wanted to see where that fell, what you took away from it. So I appreciate that. Mike, maybe a few other books that stand out to you that have helped you, or that you would point out to people? Any come to mind?
Yeah, I'm pausing because a lot of the books that have had the biggest impact on me are directly related to building a coaching business, a coaching practice, but I could still rattle all those off and plenty of other books. There's a book called The Prosperous Coach by Rich Liffin and Steve Chandler that really opened my world into how you can powerfully serve people in long, deep coaching conversations. So that's been a really important book for me. There's another book adjacent to that called The Total Coaching Success Book that was really helpful for me. Again, building how do you create impactful spaces of transformation for people that allow them to see possibility and change in their life. And also, how do you build a strong coaching business? And that's an ongoing question for me. So more universal books. One that's fresh for me is called Overcoming Under Earning by Barbara Stanny, who goes by, I believe, Barbara Hewson now. But if you look up the book, it's Overcoming Under Earning by Barbara Stanny, which we didn't talk about it at all today, but relationship with money has been something that, as an accountant turned coach, there's been all sorts of elements of the X's and O's of finance, but also your beliefs and operating system and peeking under the hood, my inner world around money and beliefs I have around money and charging X amount of dollars. What does that mean about me? And so that this book really helped me see clearly values I had, ways that I wanted to show up for myself. I mean, one element of self-care can be providing a really financially secure life. And that's something that even to this day, I haven't steadily produced a strong household income in my coaching business. And so that's a really powerful book to look at, both in terms of like, who are you surrounding yourself with in terms of people that are making money or not making money? What are the stories you tell yourself about money or not making money? Where did you learn your beliefs about money? I.e., like, what did you learn about money from your parents and in the area you grew up in? And that's another way that, just like shyness or other things that we spoke about, that stories, when they're believed to be fully true, they cloud what's actually true about yourself and about the world. So that one stands out to me. And I'm going to peek over to my, I'll name two that are cut from the same cloth a little bit. Untamed by Glennon Doyle and Eat, Pray, Love by Liz Gilbert. And to me, anything by Liz Gilbert is amazing. But I love Liz Gilbert.
Yeah. So you read Big Magic?
I did.
That was a great book.
Fantastic book.
Like in terms of creativity and, just even if you're not a writer, whatever your art form, whatever your avenue of creativity is, just the way that she shares her journey, her style, what to look for is just a great book.
Yes.
Great book.
It's so good.
Mike, in wrapping up, what are you up to these days? Is there anything else you want to share that I might not have asked about? Anything you want to share at all? Floor is yours.
Well, what I'm up to these days in my professional life is I coach people one-on-one. I love inviting people into conversations that I'm inspired by who they are and what they do in the world. And coaching is just this beautiful opportunity to slow down and take a look get some altitude on what your life looks like and get really deep inside of what am I believing about myself and believing about my life. And that's really what I'm up to. I'm also up to my podcast. So you mentioned that in my bio. I actually took a 1-year hiatus from doing any interview style conversations. And I only did 1 or 2 episodes that were solo or me interviewed in the past year or so. I've really been focused on my coaching business, but in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be picking that back up and doing interviews in my podcast. So I could definitely point people to my podcast, Mike's Search for Meaning. And that is really my love letter to people about their potential and how do you build a really meaningful, rich, fulfilling, good life in all the ways. So I'd say that's what I'm up to. Anything that we didn't cover, I just want to acknowledge you, John. I mean, as someone who's hosted 125 or so conversations myself, I know that you've done More than that. You've done over 150, I believe, of these bad boys.
If everything works out, this should be episode 160.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I acknowledge you for not only the time and energy that goes into this, but what I experienced was genuine curiosity about me and a genuine desire to really support other people, whether it's through book recommendations or people's stories. It's been palpable since our first interaction. So I'm really grateful that I was connected to you by Jen and to have this opportunity, man.
100% appreciate that. Yeah, no words. I know when you said hiatus, I'm like, I know what it's like trying to do something like that with kids and shifting around where you're putting your priorities with limited time and whatnot. And this just goes to show you, you're going to put out the energy, the amount of episodes based on what you love doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's other things that have taken a back seat because I enjoy these conversations so much. So I appreciate the introduction from Jennifer. I appreciate the conversation that you took up with me a couple months ago as we led up to this, and you being here today, Mike.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
And again, Mike and I covered Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. If there's anything that I might have missed, we're limited on time. So many questions I have. I can take them down rabbit holes. We're an hour and 40 in this conversation. Please let me know, or you can reach out to Mike. Anything that you want to find out about, any additional wisdom, guidance, insight, knowledge, anything at all. He's an amazing person. It really is incredible when you talk to great people who they can introduce you to, and your values align, the work that you're doing align, your curiosity. So it doesn't have to be the same alignment, but just being curious about your fellow human beings. So I appreciate Mike's time. Jennifer, thank you to all of you for watching, listening, and subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.